All right, coaches, we're back looking at preseason week number 2 in the 2025 season for the Minnesota Vikings against the New England Patriots. This is the same week they had joint practices with the Patriots. By all reports, by watching the film, it looks like O'Connell went for a little bit more of a vanilla approach when it came to his passing concepts and overall game plan for this preseason game. However, there are a couple of concepts that I enjoyed looking at that they all have some applicability to different teams at different levels, whether you be a high school coach, a college coach, or anything in between. So there's one of O'Connell's plays that he's kind of been known for, which is going to be his boot scheme here. You're going to notice they originally are going to line up here just in a 2x2 set. After this motion, you're going to see them fake what appears to be some form of a crack toss to the left side of the formation here. And as they do that, you're going to get a chip here by the tight end at the top of the screen, and then he's going to check to the flat. And then you're going to have, coming from the backside, the number one receiver is going to be running a deep cross. And then you can see this number one receiver to the boundary at the top of the screen up here. He's going to be running more of an alert clear out. But the read for the quarterback should be pretty simple. He's reading here if it's clean pocket and he's not feeling rushed. He can read high to low here, looking from this deep crosser back down to his check down, which is going to be this delayed chip into the flat. And if for any reason he feels pressure, for example, if this edge rusher here were to get up the field and press him sooner, then that read progression now is going to convert to a low to high. As you see this play develop, Howell fakes the crack toss. He's not going to have time to set his feet, he believes, to hit this crosser down here who would have been open to the desired location, which is right along the hash right out here. However, what he is able to do then is to then deliver it here to the flat and still gain a pretty solid completion here early in the game on second down. The second clip that I've chosen here during week 2 for the preseason 2025 here is a staple of the O'Connell offense. You're going to see them run their dagger concept here. One of the things you're going to notice here, they're going to get man coverage. So as we talked about last week, and we've also talked about in my dagger concept video, when we're running dagger, you need to have a couple of different components. What you're trying to do is high-low that hook defender, which in this case is likely going to be this defender here. When you try to high-low that hook defender, you're going to want some form of a hook or flat control, which the Vikings are going to get to here with a check release here by the tight end. And then you need some form of a clear route that you're going to get here by the number 2 receiver at the top. By doing that, then you hope to have then this dagger breaking in about 18 to 20 yards right behind it. And then you're going to high-low this hook defender that is located hopefully right here. As you can see here, as the play develops, the spacing isn't great for this concept, which is to be a little bit expected with these players coming in at this part of the game. But when Brett Rippon comes back here, you can see he's getting a form of man free with this cover 1 safety here sitting in the middle of the field. And then now, as this number 2 receiver is trying to clear to create that window, he's getting collided. And now, by seeing this defender here, this hook defender, latch on to the check release, the read should be pretty clear here for Rippon to throw the dagger right behind, which he does. He does a great job here of being patient, but because this dagger is hitting just a little bit later at a little bit different landmark, and that seam through right here getting collided, that window's very condensed, and that's why you're going to see the flag here thrown late for pass interference. But again, all the components here are there that we're looking for. You're going to have your dagger, you're also going to have your through, and then you're going to have your hook control, which the Vikings accomplish here as well. This next concept comes out of a 3x1 in the red zone. It's a concept I haven't seen a ton of with Kevin O'Connell, but it is a concept that I like just in terms of its simplicity here. As you can see, it's like a version of your slant flat concept, a quick game concept here at the bottom, but the nuance of it is it could also be adapted to attack a variety of different coverages. So when you see this look here, you're going to see the number 1 receiver run this stutter slant, and really what he's trying to do here is to get this flat defender to work over the top in order to create space for this flat route by the number 2 receiver underneath, which would just be traditional quick game. But if you think about its applicability to a version of match coverage, a lot of the times if this corner is seeing some form of an under route and he's in match coverage, he's going to make an under call and he's going to get depth. By doing so, then what's going to happen is he's obviously going to get underneath this corner route, but it would open up then this flat potentially for our number 2 receiver. And by having this stutter slant by number 1 almost serving as a pick on this flat defender, the flat defender, if getting an under call, might decide to latch on to that under or that shallow route, and then you're going to have a very simple path here to throw to your number 2 receiver on the flat, who again is located right here. So I like the design of the concept, because on the odd chance here that this corner that we've been looking at and highlighting right here, if he doesn't make an under call, and let's see, all of a sudden maybe he sees the shallow route and takes a couple of read steps, but then sees the flat. If he were to come down on that a little bit late, then you'd have all this real estate back here to throw this deeper breaking corner route. Now you'll see as this play kind of develops here, this corner route really isn't all that effective. You can see it gets collided and he wasn't able to get to his landmark. But just looking into the route design, I like the way this route kind of progresses. I like the nuance to it. I like the applicability to it, especially, again, if you're seeing a lot of match coverage. This could be a real simple way to have a quick game read here for your quarterback. Again, potentially a low to high read here, or just a defender read looking out here at this cornerback and deciding if he plays back and drops back based off of his coverage rules, then you can just throw the underneath route. And then again, if he decides to play it a little bit more aggressively, you can then hopefully hit the corner route behind. But again, as you can see here, they're still in a version of what appears to be some form of cover 1. So now having this corner try to chase down this slant. If you wanted to make this slant part of the read progression, he could be your number 1 read here, serving as a default pick. And you're going to have the ability, again, as you can see here, to gain a few yards after contact. I don't know if that was the design of the play. My assumption is it wasn't. So that's why he wasn't part of the read progression. And instead, it still creates a nice rub here to throw the out route for an easy, quick game completion, especially for having a younger quarterback down towards the red zone. This could be a nice tool to have into the toolbox. This next route's going to be out of 3x1, again in the red zone. I really like the route design here, again, because of its simplicity. You're going to see it's a version of 4 verts, but you're going to have an over-the-ball route coming from number 2. And the applicability of this I really like against your Tampa 2 defenses, or your really aggressive spot droppers that might be coming in some form of a cover 4. So you're going to see a check release here by the running back, who's eventually going to become flat control out to here, which will occupy this outside linebacker's pass responsibilities. You're going to see the number 1 receiver down here at the bottom of the corner of the screen in the boundary. He's going to be running a version of just a clear out route. Then you're going to see at the top of the screen our number 1 receiver. He's getting rid of this field corner. And so now by doing this and having the number 2 receiver run right over the top of the ball into form of a hook route, you can high-low this middle linebacker. If he were to sit down on this over-the-ball route, in theory, you could look to see if this clear-out route is going to break free. With this being a too-high structure, that's going to be difficult, especially if these 2 safeties here at the top of the screen here, number 1 and number 2, depending on their responsibilities, if they're getting depth off the hash, this is a really good play, because again, it's going to split them down the middle and you can high-low it. However, if these safeties are staying more on the hash, it's not going to do a ton for you in having a huge window. But again, it would still clear up the read for you if this outside or this middle linebacker is getting depth here towards the middle of the field. You could just throw this over the ball route right afterwards, and if he were to sit, there would be a window right behind it that you could layer the ball into if you'd like. So again, it's going to require maybe a little bit more arm talent, but if you're thinking you're going to get maybe a version of cover 2 here down into the red zone against this version of 3x1, or maybe you're getting some form of a cover 6, this could be a concept that you layer in if you have the proper personnel. So you can see here this middle linebacker getting some depth and going with this clear out route, and it almost, again, serves like a default pick. The release also then prevents this outside linebacker from undercutting it, and with the ball coming out on rhythm and on time, it's a nice, easy 5-6 yard completion, which again is a chain mover. It's something you could bring in maybe on a 2nd and long, potentially a 1st and 10, if you're just looking to get some sort of yardage on a time in which the defense is more than likely going to be in more of a drop type of coverage in this part of the field. All right, the next concept we're going to look at is another red zone concept here. It's going to be a version of mesh. Again, seeing another version here that Kevin O'Connell's had within the second week of the season, in the preseason. It appears that mesh may be a little bit more of a emphasis in their install. You can see here more of a basic version of mesh. You're going to get this rail route here by these two tight ends up at the top of the screen. You're going to see the number one receiver after he's running his mesh route sit over top of the ball. And you're going to see the number two receiver, this tight end at the top. He's going to be running that 5-yard mesh route, which is going to hopefully pick the defenders in the under coverage, which is going to allow at the bottom of the screen here our number one receiver to run his shallow route or mesh route to be the number two read here in the quarterback's progression. In this version of mesh, you're going to see the number one read be the running back out of the backfield on a wheel route. That is because hopefully with these two tight ends at the top of the screen and top of the formation here in this tight end wing, the hope is that with their movement and with their route track, you're going to be able to create a pick or a wall that this linebacker or whomever is responsible for covering this running back would have to run through. And if they are trying to undercut it, it would then create a very simple read for the quarterback to throw the wheel to the running back. On the flip side of things, if whomever the guy is responsible for covering the running back plays over the top, that would be an easy, again, read for the quarterback, which would then allow him to throw the shallow route underneath the vacated area by the defender chasing the running back. So again, you can see here as this play kind of develops here, the read progression for the quarterback, 1 for the wheel, 2 for the shallow, coming from the bottom side of the screen. In this case, there isn't really a clean pick. However, you can see this guy responsible for the running back getting depth. So in theory, our guy at the bottom of the screen should be open. In this case, he chooses the running back, which is fine to get the ball out. But however, if he would have came back down to the bottom of the screen, he would have been right as well. Last clip was at the end of the game here with quarterback Max Brosmer. Max has done a great job since coming in from the University of Minnesota undrafted. This throw on this dagger concept is incredible. It's such a tight window for him to throw into. It once again is another staple of O'Connell. This is in that last drive of the game as they're trying to tie up or surpass the Patriots. And you can see this layout of a dagger concept isn't all that different from the ones we've seen before. We're again going to high-low read the hook defender, which you're going to see more than likely is going to be coming from either this guy here, this defender, or this defender here, depending on what coverage they get. Now, when that happens, again, we are reading high to low, the dagger, back down to our check release. This is a very long dagger, a very deep dagger. You're going to see this check release get there late. And because the check release is coming in late, that's part of the reason why the throw is in such a tight window, because these linebackers get an incredible amount of depth. So you can see as the ball is snapped here, as things are playing out, you're going to see that the hook defender that they are trying to read here has gotten a ton of depth here, and he's already on the numbers. But as this flat control defender or hook control defender is getting out, or offensive player, excuse me, it's going to bring in this hook defender, and once that trigger then is had, the ball can be fit right behind him. But you can see here the ball's already out of Brosmer's hands. So there's a level of assumption on his part that that defender is going to stay up, and he's able to layer the ball over the top. So tremendous arm talent here on this throw. But again, the reason why I've included it in this week's clips is because it's yet again another example of our dagger concept. And it also goes to highlight that the longer it takes for your hook player to get out into the concept, to hold down the hook window, the more difficult of a throw it's going to be for the quarterback. So as you are deciding how to navigate your pass game and how you're constructing your concepts, these are the small little nuances you need to figure out to make sure that the flat route or the hook control is going to time up with the quarterback's footwork and also the timing of the dagger route. Because if they're not in sync, the level of arm talent you need to complete this throw is very high. But again, Max Brosmer makes a great throw, and that's week 2 of the Kevin O'Connell offense breakdown in the 2025 Minnesota Vikings preseason.